opportunity we have to share and to create relationships and to grow those relationships by getting to know the people around us. Because when we get to know them, we get to love them. When we love them, we know how to serve them. And when we can serve them, we're sharing you with them. We just ask you to be with us today with the words that we speak in our conversation. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, thank you for coming back. Session 2, yesterday we began by talking a little bit about rethinking what it means or the word native means. And explored the differences between backgrounds, which doesn't make us different, just makes us have different experiences. And those experiences have shaped our cultures. But people with different experiences are what we're going to go in today. So we're going to take one step deeper. So in case you're in the wrong place, it's Decolonizing Christianity, Indigenous Ministries, Session 2. All right. So different worlds, shared gospel, and understanding worldview. So one of the big things is we ended yesterday by talking about how we need to stop drawing this line between us and them. Because that dichotomy doesn't actually exist. The only one that exists is us. It's just us. We're just people. We're people who are designed to be social, interactive, right? All right, we need to, but when we understand we're all human, we still operate out of different assumptions. Some call it worldviews. So we have to understand the individual vis-a communal worldview. We touched upon it yesterday, but today we're going to go quite a bit different. So from session 1, we're all native of somewhere, right? I asked the question, who's native? And I asked everyone to raise your hand if you're native. We'll do it again. Raise your hand if you're native. Yes, everyone should be raising their hand, right? Because you're all native of somewhere, right? It's not this dichotomy. It's the same thing. All right, session 1 focused on breaking down false differences. And begin now with Indigenous people think and live. We want to see what is that worldview. We see that there's a different worldview, but what is it? So we want to touch into that. What is a worldview? A worldview is how a group understands life. Relationships, reality. Everyone has one, but not everyone knows it. Think of a worldview as a set of lenses. You see experiences through different lenses. We interpret relationships, success, pain, truth. Most Western Christians have an individualistic lens, but most indigenous people have a communal framework. So we're going to explore that. So we're going to see the differences between some of these. All right, in concept, this thing of identity. In an individualistic worldview, it's rooted in personal goals and choices. You're your own person. You shape your own destiny, things like that. In a communal worldview, it's rooted in family, clan, or community. Now, there's a positive and a negative to that, because a lot of the times you also have communal shame, too. And you see that in multiple places, like groups like the Amish. That communal shame could get you shunned, right? Expelled from that community. Success in an individualistic worldview, it's measured by individual achievement. The problem with this is sometimes we loft or we vaunt up the exception rather than the rule. I've seen it sometimes where there was a 14-year-old that believed he was unsuccessful because he wasn't making a whole bunch of money yet at 14. Because we have vaunted in our society children who are the exception. Oh, this one went and did this, or this one did that, and that becomes the goal rather than what's achievable. In a communal worldview, it's measured by how the group is doing. How are we doing? How are we doing as a community? I love the old saying, and I wish we kept at it more. There's an old saying that says, a society becomes great, all right? great. A society becomes great when old men plant trees, the shade of which they will never sit. That's a lot to that, isn't it? They're doing something in order for the next generation to benefit. They're doing something they will never see the benefit of, but they know their legacy, their heritage will. That's when a society becomes great. When it's decision making, what's best for me? How do I get ahead? The dog-eat-dog world, the cream rises to the top. All those euphemisms for do it yourself, do it right. In a communal, it's what's best for us. I've often heard of churches that have split over the color of the carpet. Whew. Of all the things we could have discussion about, the color of the carpet you'd think would be really low on that list. But I've heard of churches splitting up. Communal, what's best for us? What is the communal good? Discipline, correct behavior through consequence. If you don't do this, you're going to get that, right? It's the timeouts and this thing like that. In discipline in a communal, especially indigenous, it's restored harmony through storytelling. You would sit them down and you would tell them a story of someone who did something very much like it, and what happened if they continued, or what happened if they changed their ways. So you would teach them through storytelling. And it's the story behind the story that matters, not the story itself. For example, my indigenous name would be Shenegua. All right? So it's 3 stories that have a moral lesson to them. One of them is, I'll try to make this brief because I got limited time. There was a young indigenous boy that was born without the ability to hear. And unfortunately, he was also born to much older parents. And so they passed away, and so the community adopted him. Whoever could afford it for then, he would go from family to family to family. And he always felt that he was a burden. He was a burden to them. They were always taking care of them, taking care of him. And he couldn't hear, so it was time to move to the next grounds, the next area. And he was enjoying the beauty, and he couldn't hear, so while he was watching the scenery, they kept going by. And eventually he looks up and realizes, where is everybody, right? So he can see their tracks, and so he's going, and they're quite a far ahead. He's very sad, so he starts running, and it's getting darker, and he's running at night. Is that ever a good idea? No. So he ran, and he actually ran down a shale incline, and he fell, and he tumbled, and he tumbled, and he tumbled. He went all the way to the ground. And one of the things that happened is 2 clots of blood came out of his ears. And guess what? He was able to hear. He had a congenital disease where it was just filled. And that's why he couldn't hear. And when that came out, he could suddenly hear. And what do you think happens when you're suddenly able to hear? You're like, oh, let me get out of what I'm doing? Or do you sit there going, I can hear birds, I can hear wind, I can hear. And so they were getting farther ahead, and he began to run again when he came back to himself. And he ran through the day, and it was night again when he finally found his tribe. Unfortunately, his tribe was surrounded by another tribe, and they didn't know it because it was dark. And he was trying to warn them without getting close to be attacked. There was a high hillside, and he went up onto the bluff, and he was yelling, and he was calling out to them, wake up, you're surrounded, wake up. But they couldn't hear because of the height. So he jumped. He jumped and he yelled all the way down, family, be careful, wake up, wake up. And it said Creator saw him and turned him into raven, and he flew away. Now, when you look at that story through two different lenses, if you look at Western society, what do you think they paid attention to? Oh, he turned into a raven, huh? A little magic going on here. I don't know about this story. But it's the story behind the story. What is the moral? What is the lesson of this story? Self-sacrifice for your family. Who doesn't that resonate with? Right? It's family, it's that. So these are some of the stories that we would tell. All right, justice, retributive. Who's guilty? What do we do with the guilty person? Oh, punish them. The guilty party should be punished. Well, in a communal society, it's restorative. How can we fix the wound? Because we know hurt people, right? It's usually something that happens. So what is the cause? What is the reason? What's the redemptive thing? And finally, relationships. Relationships in individualistic society are flexible. They come and they go. Are you of benefit to my life? Can I gain anything out of this? What's in it for me? What's in it? What's my benefit? We're in a communal society, lifelong, sacrificial, with deep obligation. Now, here's one of the parts that Christianity has stumbled over. So we go and we send a missionary into an indigenous land, and they're there for what? 6 months, a year, maybe a couple years. And we're thinking, man, we did something great. We sent them in 2 years. They met people. The problem is, in a communal society, when they call you friend, they mean it. And when you leave, it hurts. So year after year, generation after generation, we've sent people in. We got them excited about the name of Jesus, and then we left. And pretty soon they get tired of investing the emotion. Oh man, I made this friend. He told me about this other friend, but then they left. And pretty soon they get to a spot where they go, no, thank you. I'm not interested. I can't invest again. That's what one of the differences between individualistic. Oh, you can go in there. Oh man, this guy came a couple months ago. He was great. You know, those evangelists, they come in and they just beat you up. Oh man, it hurt so good. He corrected us. We're, on fire for the Lord. And then they go and it's fine. In a communal mindset, it's, where'd you go? You were my friend. You were telling me about this other friend named Jesus. And now you're gone. So sometimes we've kind of done it to ourselves. Oh, let me ask this. All right, here's a good test. In an individualistic society, being wrong diminishes you. Who's a teacher? Teacher? Aha. So when you ask your students a question, how many hands do you, young students, they're great. They all raise their hands. Even if it's not really answering the question, they have their own comment. But, in high school, things like that, and you ask a question, how many hands shoot up? Because in an individualistic society, being wrong diminishes you. Oh man, I was wrong. Oh, I didn't know it. No. In a communal society, being wrong is a great thing because you got to learn something. And so you would rather be wrong sometimes than right. So it means the group must heal or the group must learn. So it's something, oh man, you discovered something that we need to learn too. Great. So that's part of it. All right, story time. I told this yesterday. I want to tell it again because there's a deeper thing. Two people see the same thing from different perspectives and they both be right. All right, so this was when they were trying to teach manners to the natives. All right, we're going to go show them how they should treat people because they didn't know beforehand. Or is that it? No, okay. So they're teaching manners. And so they went up to the man, they said, all right, when you come to a door, you open the door and you let the lady go in first. He goes, absolutely not. I go in first. Now, Western society, Western culture looks at that and go, oh, what kind of misogyny is going on here, right? What is this, a man leads the way kind of thing? Change the perspective. In our culture, in Western culture, what are most of our storefront doors made out of? Glass. Do we live in a safe society? Yes. You know what's on the other side of the door. Our cafeteria doors, glass. We live in a safe society. You know what's on the other side of the door. Many indigenous, especially in North America, they have not been in a safe environment. They don't always know what's on the other side of the door. So the husband, the man, says, I would rather something happen to me than my family. Do you see how two different perspectives and they both can be right? When we look at it from that way, it goes, oh, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I would rather be that way as well. So trying to teach manners to the natives was counterproductive because they didn't get to know what they considered safe or unsafe to begin with. Trust me, it was one man that was told, no, let the lady go in first. He goes, why? Are you afraid what's on the other side? You're sending your lady in first? All right. So when it comes to indigenous justice and discipline, it's restorative, storytelling, community harmony over punishing. My grandfather would sit me down and tell me a story. And the cool thing is, what is the great thing about stories? Are they rememberable? Yeah, it's something about a story that just, it reminds us, we remember it easier than most things. Storytelling is a lost art. I remember there was sometimes, there was an old man, he acted as a troubadour in Renaissance things. And he would simply sit next to a fire and tell stories. And guess what? He would have surrounded by a huge crowd because we love listening to stories, especially when they wake us up or teach us something. So that's exactly what they would do. So in this young person, right? Where'd he go? He's around here somewhere. He's being talked to by the elders, and they're being told stories. And so trying to find what's redemptive. Yeah. You know, so the great thing about being able to tell a story is you can correct someone without calling out their name. Right? You're able to correct something without having to point the person out. Where in a Western society, if it's in an individualistic society, you point the person out. Watch out for this person, right? Wanted, dead or alive, right? Well, in this one, you're able to say a lesson and it doesn't have to shame the person. They're able to learn without it. So it's one of the neat things. So the group, and especially the child, know exactly who the story is for. I remember a story where a pastor was talking about, I think it was wearing jewelry or whatever it happened to be. And he's talking about it, he's doing all this, and people were nodding along, agreeing. And at the end of the sermon, as he was shaking hands at the back of the church and things like that, this man came up to him and shook the pastor and said, Pastor, I really appreciate all that. Thank you for not saying my name. He thought it was about him. You know, when it's like that, you're able to assimilate, you're able to internalize that information without being your name called out. And so I'll let you know a secret. Most sermons are for the pastor. It's something that they're like, oh man, that was a great question. I didn't remember the answer to it. I should do a study on it, and it becomes a sermon. Or, oh, I'm struggling with this. Maybe other people are struggling too, and it becomes a sermon. So things like that. So, if depending on what sermon it is, you know something about your pastor. All right. If it becomes struggling with gambling, look at him and go, all right. So who realizes Christianity is not a Western religion? All right. Christianity was born in a communal, non-Western world. The gospel fits indigenous culture more than we realize. He went and sought their good. He went amongst them. He mingled with them. He went into a society that was absolutely communal. When they started, where were the first churches started? In people's homes. Home churches. They would invite people. This is so important. Christianity isn't white, isn't Western. You know, I studied with a Navajo man who would ask me a question before he would study every time. He would ask a question, all right? One of them was, isn't this just a white man's religion? He goes, because when I see it, everyone who's teaching it is white. Everyone the pictures of Jesus on all this other stuff. And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, you know what? You know that Ford truck you love so much? Do you know who designed that? Do you know who manufactures it? I was like, are you willing to give that up? He's like, absolutely not. Let's study. So it was one of those things where just the change of that mindset. So the Bible is full of family, elders, land, restoring communities. Indigenous people often say, that sounds familiar, because it is. Just haven't heard it that way before. I was studying in Arizona with the Navajo man, and he had such great questions. And some of his questions were very deep. Some were a little easier, like the Ford question, but some were very deep. This was the time when Hurricane Katrina hit the United States and New Orleans went like underwater, right? And he asked me, at that time period, there was probably thousands of people praying for that hurricane to go away. Praying hard, earnestly. Why didn't God stop it? And I was like, well, look, we are linear creatures. We have a beginning, we have an end, and everything goes in one direction, right? We don't know how things should have been. We only know how they were. So just as Hurricane Katrina, we didn't know how bad it could have been. There was times where there was levees that broke where people didn't live, and there's some levees that should have broke with the amount of water and debris that was in them that held. If those had broke, oh man, it would have been even worse. Yeah, it would have been even worse than what it was. And I was like, we don't know how bad it could have been. We just know how bad it was because of God's grace. There was times where it was amazing things. So I was able to help during Hurricane Katrina. And I heard stories of people that I interacted with. There was a man who, his neighborhood was being flooded, and his neighborhood was full of older people that couldn't escape. So what he did is he broke into a sporting goods kind of store. He left his ID, his credit card, and a note. And he took 3 inflatable rafts. And even though the water was probably to his chest level, he got ropes and he hooked up those 3, and he would put elders into the boat and he would drag them through the water. Now, anyone know what kind of water that was? Was it the cleanest? Because what flooded first? The sewers. And so he was walking through muck and mud, but he was carrying elders. The interesting thing is, he did not see a submerged car. And so on the wreckage of a submerged car, he cut his leg. In that water, is that where you want to cut your leg? He got a very bad infection to the fact that they actually had to remove his leg. But even in the shelter, he was saying, this is all I've got, but you're welcome to half. Just that indomitable spirit. Even though he lost his home, he lost a lot of things, he lost a leg. That communal idea, that communal support, helping someone else is amazing. All right, another story. Some protesters, they're very staunch in what they believe. But anyone knows statistically who are the hardest, strongest protesters in the world? It's been statistically shown. You know how they put your arm behind your back and they try to lift you like that to force you to get up? Well, they have sat there so long that they've dislocated their arms and they still won't move. And it's the ones that sit in front of abortion clinics. They have been statistically the ones that cannot be moved. It's amazing because when you're fighting, when you're there for someone else, are you able to do more? I'm running out of time, so I'll end with this story before I go on. This was in Sacramento, California. There was a man who was on the side of the freeway. He had popped a tire over a rough road, and something had nicked his oil pan. So he jacked up his car. Took off the tire, and he's seeing the oil drip. So he was going to go and put some putty and stop it. So he's underneath the vehicle, next to a freeway with vehicles going the speed limit, I swear, officer. One went past, and the jack slipped, and the weight of the vehicle landed on him, and it was on his chest. And he was a big guy, so it wasn't enough to crush him, but he could not take in a full breath, which means he could not yell for help. It was this raspy sound. Help, help. He couldn't speak. And all he saw, after getting tired, after not being able to speak, not being able to scream for help, all he saw was a pair of children's legs running along the side and coming up. And he goes, go call for an adult. Go get help. I need help. What happened next blew his mind. As the vehicle started lifting off of him, and actual children, too, started pulling his pant legs, helping him up. When he got out, he saw a 120-pound woman lifting the front end of his car. Okay. The engine alone is around 800 pounds. Yeah, all right. Who's a weightlifter in here? When's the last time you lifted 800 pounds? Lifted the front end of it. Oh, God has made us so amazing, has he? But see, it's those stories when you talk about it, people are like, oh, that's really neat. It's the hook. So I love studying with him. All right. So one of the takeaways I want to do is know before you go. What is something that the community, what do you know? Learn before you go. Study. Learn about the culture. What do they find admirable? What do they find insulting? How do you give thanks? How do you tell someone you're appreciated? Find a mentor. One of the greatest things, and this is what I talked about last time, when you're going into an indigenous culture, do not introduce yourself. Be introduced. What happens is they're conferring their friendship, their relationship onto you. It's like becoming instant friends. I told this last session, but I'll say it again because it's worth repeating. If I go onto a reservation or if I go into an indigenous community and introduce myself, we'll be friends in 10 years. If I knew someone who used to live there, we'll be friends in 5 years. If I get introduced, we'll be friends in 5 minutes. The question is, how much time do you want to take? All right, ask before offering. There's so many times that we have this great idea. We're going to go into this community and we're going to help them with X. Because we know they need. Do you see how that can come across as condescending? Oh, you poor lowly savages, I know what you need. This is what you need. The thing is, we don't know or we can't appreciate until we ask. Asking is a wonderful thing. And that's the thing, be introduced. So, things to look for. This is the practical part. Things to do before you go into a community. Find out, are there any authors there? Have they written anything? Is there any indigenous authors that we can read about, read from? What about artwork, galleries, things like that? What do they do for expression? Movies. Okay, so I'm going to do a test. I'm going to do a test right now to see if anyone here has watched one of the most prolific indigenous movies ever. All right, so I'm going to say a saying, and I need you to finish the saying. So if I say, "Hey, Victor." Oh, darn. Oh, okay. So there's a movie called Smoke Signals. It's very popular, and it is a pretty accurate depiction of indigenous life. When you have a car that only goes in reverse, that's an indigenous car. I lived on a reservation where that was the car. Yeah, it only went in reverse. So you would, and the cool thing is, it was a hardtop. We turned it into a convertible. You know why? Because you could sit on the hood, have the steering wheel here, and drive forward. You worked with, so it wasn't until much later in life that I had ice cream. Why? No refrigeration. When you were good, you got honey sticks. Oh, I love honey sticks. Who's had a honey stick? Those little tubes, you bite it, you crack it, and oh, it's so good. And you've had them too? They're so good. There you've got the root beer ones and the chocolate and it's wonderful. If I was good. So as you know, I didn't get many. All right. Know before you go. Okay, so there's 4 avenues for evangelism or mission in indigenous culture. All right? I'll let you know now. It's knowing, loving, serving, sharing. All right? Knowing, loving, serving, sharing. Let me ask you this. Where do you think you should start? Knowing, loving. Who thinks serving? How about sharing? Okay. I'll let you know now. You should always start with knowing. Because it's when you get to know the group. You can't love them first because you don't know who they are. You love the idea. There's a lot of people in Western culture that is enamored with indigenous culture, Native American culture. You know, they love the idea of it. They don't know the struggles they actually have to go through. Do you want someone to know about you or know you? It's a vast difference. So you can't love because you love the idea, not who they actually are. You can't serve because you don't know what they need. You just know what you want to give them.
When they have like activities and all that, sometimes they have something.
Yep.
Would that be a good time to go there and learn about what?
Yes. Okay, so the question was for our online people. Would it be a good idea if they have activities to go and kind of show yourself and good time to interact? Absolutely. That is a great time to do it. And it's a great time to look and listen and less speak. Learn, absorb, see what it's about, ask good questions. What's the history of this? What does it represent? Like there's ribbon dances, there's powwows. Who's ever been to a powwow? Awesome. 1. All right. 2. All right. What is a powwow for? No? See, that's the thing. A lot of people know the outside surface, but they don't know what it's for. It's a way to train the next generation on traditional dances, on being able to showcase what you've learned for the year. It's a way to show what education. It's wonderful things. It's also a way to show your artwork that you've worked on for the year and sell it and maybe, earn money for your family, things like that. There's so many deeper meanings, but sometimes we go to someplace, but we don't want to know why, or we don't ask why. So many times we should never skip the why. The why is so important, and it's when we skip the why that bad things happen. For example, All right, you tell a child, I'm always going to pick on children, sorry. All right, you tell a child, do not cross that bridge to go get those apples. What are they eventually going to do? Go cross the bridge to go get those apples. Because what do they think you're denying them? The apples, right? Because we didn't say the why. If we say, don't cross that bridge because it can't support your weight to go get those apples, were you denying them the apples? No, you just wanted to find a safer way to get there. It's when we forget the why that problems happen. That's when we get the lazy of, because I said so. No one's guilty of that, right? No. Or when we forget the why because, they get to that stage in life, why? Why? Yeah, it drives you up the wall. But the thing is, the why is so important. Okay. So, practical tips. There we go. You got to hit it harder. All right, read up on the community before you go. I've thankfully got to work with 2 communities that actually had a documentary done on them. And so it was really great. I got to learn a little bit about it before we went. Seek a cultural mentor, ideally from that group. I'm working with a group right now in Warm Springs in Oregon. And the great thing is we had some people who were already a member of the church through some other means. And I got to go to them and I was like, hey, what would it look like if we created a Bible study in your home? A home church? Whatever it is. She was totally willing, and the great thing is, it grew from there. Ask, how can I be introduced rather than let me introduce myself? So, I'm going to pick on him. I hope he doesn't watch this. All right. There's a gentleman named, we'll just call him Steve. Steve. And he was new to indigenous ministries. And he was working with another gentleman who has been in indigenous ministries his entire life. He knows so many people. And he knows some very, very rich natives, all right? And so they were on this guy's yacht. Yeah, all right. He was on his yacht, and they were having a quiet conversation. And Steve came over, and he wanted to include or introduce himself into the conversation. And so he started thinking, what are some questions that I can ask? But again, he's coming from an individualistic mindset. He goes, oh, I know what this guy must value. So he walks over there and goes, oh, man, this boat is so great. How much did it cost you? That coming up, hey, how's it going? My name is considered very aggressive in a lot of indigenous culture. And so the guy looked at him, and you could see this deer in the headlight looks, and he turned his back on him and continued the conversation with the other person. It was too much. It was too much for him to take in at that time. So a lot of times our Western introduction is too aggressive kind of for them. So I told the story yesterday with some new people. I'll tell it again. I took one of our young gentlemen, his name was Warren Begay. I took him to one of our churches. And he went in and he shook hands with the greeter, lady greeter. And he shook hands and he kept going. And she goes, oh, you can shake my hand harder. And he looks at me and we kind of smile at each other. And I said, no, actually he can't. Because in our culture, that's considered rude. In Western culture, you give them a handshake, they'll remember, right? You show them, you respect them by that hard handshake, right? In indigenous cultures, that's aggressive. And it's always self-deprecating. What did I do that made you so aggressive? So by knowing that and going in there and not just, hey, how's it going? And they're going, oh, okay, I'm going to run away now. You do a soft handshake, where in Western culture, that's known as the what? The dead fish? Anyone ever? Oh, okay, yeah. But in that, it's respectful. I'm being respectful when I do that. All right. And then don't assume they might not even want a church. Oh, they're spiritual. They don't want a church. They are this. How do you know? Did you ask? Did you meet? Or did we assume before we go? And we all know what happens when we assume, right? Okay. Won't have to go into that one. All right. Evangelism that follows rational rhythm. Do not skip knowing. The knowing, loving, serving, sharing. All right. You can't start with love, service, or evangelism, sharing. Love without knowing is often projection. Service without knowing can be condescending. And sharing without knowing often fails to connect. We have to know how they receive before we can share, right? All right, so we want to make sure that we're not projecting. I know who you are this, you are that, you are whatever. We need to know who they actually are, so don't skip knowing. People are not projects, they are relationships. So I did this one yesterday, but faith is a relationship. You know, a lot of people say, oh, faith is the evidence of things not seen, and actually that's weak tea. All right? That is such a small sliver of what faith is. Faith is a relationship. That's why those who have a small or a weak relationship have weak faith. Those who have great relationship have great faith. All right? Because it's a relationship. How many times does your mom have to call you on the phone and say, hey, it's your mom? I'm speaking about this before caller ID, all right? So does she have to, when you hear her voice, does she have to say, oh, by the way, it's your mother? Why? Because you know the voice. You know the voice. So when we get to a spot, when we know their voice, all right, and this will not just help you with this will help you in every relationship you ever had. How many times have women said, I wish I was just listened to? Wish she would just listen. Yeah. Hand shot up real quick back there. All right. I want to be listened to, paid attention, recognized, right? This is the same part of it. This will help you in every relationship from now on. This is not just native work. This is also family work. Same principles apply. Man, I wish there was more teenage boys in here. You want to get the girl? Get to know them. Who they actually are, not who you think they are, right? Not who you believe them to be, but who they actually are. All right. So what does that look like? Knowing what it looks like, sitting on the porch, having a good time. Sitting on the porch, rocking back and forth, having a conversation. That's it. Is that terribly hard? No. All right, show up with no agenda. Don't try to steer the conversation. Just have a conversation. Spend time with. Loving. Learn their songs. So many times the story behind the song is usually even better than the song itself, right? Appreciate their beauty. There's some things drums are a big part of a lot of indigenous cultures. Try to bring a drum into some of the churches. Oh, the dear sweet saints will be clutching their pearls, right? But what does it mean to them? The drum is very important because it's the first music you ever heard. It was your mother's heartbeat. So whenever they're playing it, whenever they're starting off, it starts off remembering their mother's heartbeat, the giver of life. All right? So it's what it means to them. To them, it's beautiful. You got to remember, many indigenous cultures are matriarchal. All right? So when we honor our women, when we do things that remember that, we're honoring them. We're trying to give them that recognition. Serving, mend a fence. Go build something. Put something back together. Paint something. That's always great. Ask how to help, not assume. What can I help with? What can I do? How can I serve? What is something that is needed? Am I even allowed to serve? There are some things that we want to be a part of that it's not our place to be a part of. Sharing, trading stories. So, have you noticed I share a lot of stories? It's my culture. I think in stories. It's just how I think. The funny part is I've followed a carpenter for a while now, and he's spoken stories too. They're called parables. I don't know why we ever stopped speaking in stories. Yeah. So the fun part is I learned my numbering in French from a story. So there was 3 cats, un, deux, and trois. Un, deux, and trois were cats. Yeah, and they weren't allowed to drive along the ice on the river because it was too thin. But they did, and the ice broke. So un, deux, trois, the cats sank. And now they're deceased. Un, deux, trois, cats sank, cease. All right, so that's how I learned it. I learned that when I was like 5. I have not forgotten it yet. Because stories excite something. It's something about it. Stories we will always remember. And now, for those who have never spoken French, now you know at least a 6. All right. Next time we'll try Chinese with your itchy knee and the sun she go. Ishi ni sun she go. Okay. All right. Trade stories. That's how I remember things. I put it into a story and then I remember it. So the bad thing, if I don't turn your name into a story, I let you know now I forgot it. I will remember your face until the end of time. Names, the reason I can't remember names, this is my excuse. It's not your real name anyway. You'll get that in heaven. Yeah, see? Smooth with it, right? All right. Share stories. And this is the time. When they start sharing stories with you, you're in. You've made it. That's when you can start sharing your testimonial exchange. Things that God has done in your life. Because when you start sharing stories, they want you to get to know them. And they want to get to know you. So that's a great time. All right, so those are just examples of what you can do. All right, closing challenge. Will you learn before you go? Please say yes. Okay, good. All right, what will you do differently? Some of you are thinking, I've never heard this before. That's okay. The goal isn't to fix everything today. It's to be willing to change. Be willing to learn before you lead. The gospel can thrive in indigenous cultures. All right, but only if we stop trying to westernize it. All right, it will thrive. It will work. So I told this story yesterday, but I'm going to tell it again because there's so much. Do I have the time to tell? Ooh, sure. I'll make it the abridged version. Who was here yesterday? You were there? Okay. All right. And who remembers the judo story? Was that an okay story? It was all right, right? Okay, she liked it. All right, I'm going to tell that one again. Because there's so much depth to it that every time, and that's the great thing about, new people in a community, you get to tell the story again and it's new. All right, so there was a young man. Actually, I should get some of you guys to come up here and recite it because how well we remember stories, but that's okay, I won't. There was a young man that wanted to learn judo. A martial art, but he was too young. And his parents would always tell him, no, you're too young. You have to wait till you're like 12. And so it was the summer before his 12th birthday. And he was so excited because he was going to learn judo. He was going to get that yes, and he was going to learn it. And so he went up to his parents. And this is a great thing about kids. When they want something, they only ask once, right? They ask over and over and over, right? It's half-track mind. All right, so it was the summer before his 12th birthday, and he goes up, please, I can learn judo now, right? And they're like, yes, you can. But after the family vacation. Oh, okay. So family vacation comes, and they're doing a road trip, a cross-country road trip. They're going to see all these sights, and they're going off, but do you think he cares about the sights? No, he only cares about when he gets back home and gets to start his classes. The downside is tragedy struck when he was on that road trip. They got into an accident. In fact, they got into an accident so bad that young man actually lost his left arm. It took a long time for him to heal, to rehabilitate, to learn how to do things one-handed, to do a lot of things differently. But one thing that never diminished was his desire to learn judo. He still wanted to learn. And so he went to his parents after he was healed up, after everything was good. And he goes, I'm going to go learn. And he starts looking for these commercial dojos. And he goes around and he gets the same 3 excuses. I'm sorry, we can't accommodate you. I'm afraid our insurance won't cover it. We're afraid you're going to get hurt. And do you think he gave up? No. He's still determined. His search kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. He eventually found someone that said, you know what? I know of a retired teacher. I bet you he'd be willing to teach you. All the excitement, he was so excited. He's like, where is he, right? Where is it? What's the address? And he goes there and he finds this retired teacher and he goes, please, please teach me judo. I want to learn. I won't get hurt. I will do all these things. And he looks at him, he goes, okay, I'll teach you on 2 conditions. 1, once you start, you cannot stop. No giving up in the middle when it gets hard, because it's going to get hard. 2, you can't question how I'm going to train you. Now, for the rest of us, did that little red light go off? Wait, what is he talking about? Why did he emphasize that? Do you think it went off for that little boy? No, he was too excited. He's like, yeah, I'll do anything. I'll scrub, I'll whatever. So the next week he starts training. They're doing this training to learn judo, and he realizes he's doing this one move over and over. And he's training, but he's like, oh, it's just starting. We'll get more. Couple months go by, and he's practicing the same thing over and over, and he's getting a little worried. But he remembers rule number 2, don't question, just do it. 6 months go by. Day in and day out, he's learning the same move over and over. And he goes up to the teacher and he goes, aren't I supposed to be learning some other things here? Aren't I supposed to, flying ninja kick, something like that? The teacher goes, remember rule number 2? Yeah, I remember. He goes, I'll tell you this. You're only learning one move because you'll only need one move. Do you think that answered his question? No. But he did it anyway, and he kept going. In fact, a year goes by, and he's shocked when his teacher enters him into a tournament. He's going against these people that know all this stuff, and he's going in there. He's nervous. He doesn't know. He's sweating like crazy. He doesn't know what's going on. But he goes in, and it comes to the preliminaries. And he goes his first match, and he wins it so fast. It was amazing. In fact, he went through all the preliminaries, winning one right after another. It was great. He was blown away. In fact, he went to the quarterfinals. And then he went through the semifinals. What he would do is he'd wait for his opponent to get tired. He'd wait for his opponent to lower his guard. And he'd do his one move and he would pin him. And he'd move on. Then he got to the finals. His opponent was bigger, stronger, faster, and more experienced than he was. In fact, it was so lopsided that the ref called times on the match, and he walked over to the teacher and goes, I've been watching this kid all day. I'm afraid he's going to get hurt. This guy is aggressive. This guy is mean. This guy is very talented. He goes, this kid is going to get hurt. And the teacher calmly stands there and says, nope. Let him continue. Come to find out that the teacher had been in this community, in this area for decades. Everyone respected him. Everyone trusted what he said. So they're like, okay. And they brought them both back to the center of the mat, and they started the match again. 26 seconds. 26 seconds after they started the match back up, his opponent lowered his guard. He did his one move and he threw that man to the mat and he pinned him, and he won the entire tournament. Now, you ever, when something exciting happens, kind of time seems to speed up? things happen so much quicker. They're taking pictures of him, lights are flashing, they're congratulating, they're shaking hands. He gets a trophy taller than he is, and everything's so excited, and it's a blur until they're in the van ride back home. In the van ride back home, they're going over all the moves that were used against him, all the things that were used against him. And he goes, wait, stop, wait. How did I win? I only know one move. They know all these things. They know how did I win? Teacher just smiled and he goes, okay, I'll tell you. And he pulled the van over. He said, you won for 2 reasons. 1, you have nearly mastered one of the hardest throws in all of judo. You have nearly mastered it. And the second, the only known defense for this move is if your opponent grabs your left arm. What he was told made him less than. What he was told made him incapable was exactly what made him great. And that's the same thing with us and God. The less of us that's in it, the more of him can be filled in it. The more of him that can go forward. If you don't know enough, great. That's exactly who we're looking for. If you're timid, if you're untrained, great. That's exactly who we need. Because the less of you, remember, what did Jesus have to do to the disciples first? He had to unteach them all the things they thought they knew. Remember, they tried to keep the kids away. They tried to keep the widows away. And Jesus is like, no, you don't know me. You don't get it. Let them come unto me. The less you know is not the less capable. It's the more capable you are to be taught. So, ending with that, I want to say thank you. Questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas, questions that people had, but they're now leaving. You had a question. What was the question? I will tell you some other time. Yes, I know the move. Okay. If you have any questions, if you're starting Indigenous ministries, if you're hitting roadblocks, you want to retry, that's my email address. Just to let you know, every week I get about 200 and something emails. I will answer back. It may take me a bit, but I will answer. Questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas, things you want to try out. You need research. There is a certain tribe, there is a certain whatever, and you would like research. Or you have no idea who a mentor could be. Maybe we can find you someone who has already dealt with the community before. Things like that. Hit me up. Let me know. Come visit Madras Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's in Oregon. It's only it's a long flight. We'll just put it that way. Go for it.
My question is, why does the Western world or Western not learn from Indigenous? Why has the Western world gone away?
Okay, so the question is, why hasn't the Western world done this yet? Why haven't we gone down this training path? Unfortunately, because we are a product of our own success. We're too used to ministering or catering people that look like us. You know, we're ministering across the street rather than around the world. It was Abraham Lincoln. Just to let you know, Abraham Lincoln is my favorite person to quote. Because if you ever read his stuff, he did not mince words. He was a gut puncher. It was great. It says, one of his quotes was, intoxicated by unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the preserving need of grace, too proud to pray to the God that made us. Ouch. Intoxicated by unbroken success. We are intoxicated by our own success. We have been successful doing it our way this whole time. Why should I change? And the problem is because we're not talking to the same people. It may be in the middle of our country, but it is not of our country. It's a different mindset. So, I think that is, I went a minute over, my bad. That's all we have time for, but I am still going to stick around for questions and things like that. But let's close in prayer. Dear Lord, we ask that you go with us wherever we go. Send the angels before us, behind us, after us, and surround us. Help us to truly know someone. And then, just like you did, ask them to come follow you. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.